Hello and welcome to my channel, which is all about backpacking, wild camping and trail running. So behind me here I have got the Lanshan 1 tent, which I've just used on the Cambrian Way. On that trip I used it for 14 wild camps, 4 nights on the campsite, so I feel like I've got to know the tent really well. In this video today I'm going to tell you all the things that I really liked about the tent, some of the things I didn't like about the tent, so hopefully you can make a decision about whether or not you think the Lanshan one might be the tent for you. So the Cambrian Way is a 300-mile backpacking trip across the mountains of Wales, and it's arguably Britain's hardest backpacking trail. So on it, the Lanshan one was certainly tested out in a variety of different conditions. If you're interested in finding out any more about the Cambrian Way, I'm going to put a link on here to my Cambrian Way videos. A few specs and details first. So the tent currently, as of today, which is the 16th of November, is on sale at just under £95 here on AliExpress, which just seems like a fantastic price. I've got the tent here, I've put it on the scales. The scales are showing 848 grams. I think the official weight of it is 845, so we'll settle for that, that's close enough. And just to give you an idea of pack size, I'll put it in here. So you've got it there next to my Van Gogh Force 10 winter tent. That's it compared to the Lanshan 2, Lanshan 1, can of beans. So you can see it does pack down, really small, easy to get in your rucksack. The quality of the materials on these Lanshan tents are absolutely first rate. The tabs on them will need seam sealing, but once you've done that, you've got an outer that is totally bomb proof. So on the Cambrian Way I had a couple of times where I had yellow weather warnings for rain, and I can say that despite some absolutely torrential downpours, this outer never let a drop of rain in at all at any point. So the ground sheet, which I always think looks a bit flimsy, just cut brilliantly. Had some really wet weather and some rough ground. No signs at any point of any water getting in through the ground sheet at all. And I know from my experience of the Lanshan 2 tent just how durable that ground sheet is. And the same goes for all the tabs, all the zips as well on the tent. If you look after these Lanshan tents, they're going to last a long time. They are extremely durable. So let me now talk about the design and usability of the tent. So I've pitched it here in exactly the same way that I pitched it on the Cambrian Way. And what I found is it's got a relatively small footprint, certainly with something say like compared to the Lanshan 2. So it meant that there were a couple of occasions where I was able to pitch this tent in an area that I wouldn't have been able to pitch a larger tent, which I found really useful. This tent is going to need a little bit of practice with its pitching. It's fairly easy to get it nicely tensioned on a flat site like this, but when you're up in the mountains and perhaps the ground's a bit rough or it's sloping, you are going to need to spend a bit of time to make sure that you've got everything tensioned correctly, so it's a little bit more fiddly. Now this is a tent that's design relies very much on tension. So one of the things that I've done is to split out this guy line on the front into two, and it's really so I can have this guy line here pulled out a bit further with, you know, a bigger stake, and that just gives me a little bit more security. When it's tensioned out correctly, it will stand up to some pretty strong winds. Although on the Cambrian Way I never had any, gale force winds. It was certainly windy enough on one campsite that it disintegrated an awning on a caravan, and they stood up to it perfectly fine. It's not a tent that I'd want to use on, say, a mountain summit if I knew it was going to be really, really windy, but it will stand up to windy conditions, albeit it might be a little bit noisy because of these large panels on the front. But you can have confidence that it is going to stand up in pretty windy conditions. Now, through their design, I think these Lanshan tents are more prone to condensation. because it's difficult to get an airflow through the tent. The only way you can really do it is by increasing the height of your main pole, which then lifts the tent up off the ground so you can get a bit of an airflow underneath. But it's why personally I'd probably always go for the 2-skin Lanshan 1 over the single skin Lanshan Pro, because what you can do is you can keep a separation between the inner and the outer of the tent by pulling these guy lines tight on the back. And again, I've used my pole here to be able to lift this one out on the back. I've seen some people actually that use additional poles here as well, but of course you've got to carry them. But what you are able to do is, as I say, keep that separation, and then you've got a dry inner and a wet outer full of condensation, but you can keep dry on the inside. Now, I suppose one of my concerns before I went on the Cambrian Way was the actual living space that was in this Lanshan 1, but I actually found it to be really, really good. So I've got here my full-size winter sleeping pad in, and you can see I've actually got lots of space on the inside. So there I'd put things like my all my electrical stuff, all my dry stuff would go down there, but yeah, lots of space there. And also this vestibule area as well, plenty of space here for me to keep my rucksack, cooking stuff, any wet gear that I'd got, and also plenty of space as well for me to do cooking if the weather was bad. But even more was the ability to be able to open up fully this inner tent. And what I would say is, if you are going to get any of the Lanshan tents, get the T-zips over the, what they call it, the U-zips, U-ones, something like that, yeah, which only open halfway. Get these that open up fully. So what I could do again, it just creates more space. If the weather was bad and that front door was down, I've got this big area now that I could use as well. And also, on those really nice evenings that I got, I could take this peg out, roll this right back here, and then again you've got a lovely open space here where you can sit inside, do my cooking here. If there happen to be, you know, lots of midges or stuff, I can pull the midgenettes down. But I just found it a really nice, versatile, usable space. Plenty of height for me to sit up as well. Yeah, do my cooking. I had one day on the Cambrian Way where I was locked down all day with bad weather. It was horrific weather, and you know what, it wasn't too bad to say I was like nearly 24 hours in a little tent. It was actually reasonably comfortable. The last thing I would say about living space is I'm 6 foot, and I would say 6 foot is probably just about right in terms of your sleeping. And I'm going to sleep on here. I would say if you're 6 foot plus, your probably head's just going to start touching the inner tent when you're asleep on a full pad like this. So maybe if you're very tall, you might want something a bit bigger. But you know what? This is just, for me, a great, versatile, usable space. I loved it. So talking of versatility, the other nice feature on this tent is that if, of course, you've either got a lot of condensation on the outer of the tent, or it's been chucking it down rain in the night, what you can do is you can easily take down the inner separate from the outer, so you can keep them both separate, so you're not getting your inner tent wet, you can keep it dry. So there's just some nice little tabs on the side here that you can just unclip. So all these unclip. I'll not do it all, it takes a couple of minutes. And at the other end you can pitch the outer first and then hang the inner from the inside. But again, it's just really good in that you can keep your inner and your outer separate, and you can keep that inner tent dry, which of course when you're backpacking is really, really useful. So in conclusion, what do I like about this tent? Well, first of all, it's really lightweight for a backpacking tent. It's under 1 kilo in weight, which is just great. Secondly, It's fairly compact, so you're not going to need a big footprint to pitch it, so you can get it into those little nooks and crannies sometimes when you need to. A third thing, the materials, they're really weather resistant and they're really durable. If you look after this tent, it's going to last you a long time. The fourth thing is, it's really versatile. I love the way you can do the different door arrangements. I love the fact that you can take the inner down and keep the inner separate from the outer, so you keep that inner dry when you need to do so. And last of all, the tent's really inexpensive. Where do you get all that for around that £100 price point? I don't know. To me, it's just not beatable on that. So some of the things that I think perhaps are not so good about this tent because of its design. First of all, it can be quite difficult to pitch on really rough ground or sloping ground and getting the tension right, which can sometimes be a bit fiddly. It can suffer a bit from wind noise. If it's really windy, those panels are going to flap around a lot, and it's probably not the sort of tent that I'd want to use on a really exposed site if it was very, very windy. Lastly, condensation, which may be a bit of a problem because it's hard to get a wind flow underneath the tent. But aside from that, I just think the Lanshan one is a brilliant tent. I'm going to keep using it on other trips that I'm going to do, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot more enjoyment out of it. But as always, there are lots of other tents out there, lots of other opinions. If you've got any questions that you'd like to ask me about this tent, please feel free to drop me a comment and I'll reply to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching. Now on to some more adventures.